Good morning, class. Today we're going to read Charlotte's Web. We will read it aloud together and we'll pause when needed. Grab your books and sticky notes. And we begin. Before breakfast. "Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. "Out to the hog house," replied Mrs. Arable. "Some pigs were born last night." "I don't see why he needs an axe," continued Fern, who was only 8. "Well," said her mother, "one of the pigs is a runt. It's very small and weak, and it will never amount to anything, so your father has decided to do away with it." "Do away with it?" shrieked Fern. "You mean kill it just because it's smaller than the others?" Mrs. Arable put a pitcher of cream on the table. "Don't yell, Fern," she said. "Your father's right. The pig would probably die anyway." Fern pushed a chair out of the way and ran outdoors. The grass was wet, and the earth smelled of springtime. Fern's sneakers were sopping by the time she caught up with her father. "Please don't kill it," she sobbed. "It's unfair." Okay, guys, now let's stop for a second. Grab out one of your sticky notes, and on your sticky note, I would like you to write down the names of the characters. So who can tell me the names of some of the characters? Well, and we'll write them down together. So take a moment to do that, and we'll discuss. So you want to do names of characters, and I'll write this on the board. Names of characters, and the main idea. Let's start with that. So take a moment to reflect on that, and then we'll continue reading. Okay. Now remember, we will be having a multiple choice quiz on this information tomorrow, so you're going to want to make sure that you are stopping throughout our reading today to make sure you're identifying, continuing to identify the names of the characters, the themes, the main idea and plot. Any questions?
I have to use all these sticky notes? All these are going into the book? At least characters, I can keep those straight. There's a lot of characters, but that should be easy. She mentioned theme. I don't even know what theme is. How many themes are there? How am I ever going to keep all that straight? Although summarizing, I hope she calls on me to summarize. I can do that part of it. But she did say there was a quiz later. I hate multiple choice quizzes. I'm going to have to remember all of these things on the sticky notes. I'll never be able to do that.
Good morning. Today we're going to read The Giver. We will read it out loud together, and we're going to pause throughout so we can take notes. Grab your books and sticky notes because Friday we're going to have a multiple choice quiz on the very first 3 chapters. And also, this worksheet here, I will pass them out. This worksheet is also going to help you identify some important things as we read. So let me take a moment to pass these out. Here you go. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to begin the passage, starting with chapter 1. So you want to grab out your books, of course, and your sticky notes. You can write directly in the book if you own your own copy. Chapter 1. It was almost December and Jonas was beginning to feel frightened. No, wrong word. Jonas thought. Frightened meant that deep, sickening feeling of something terrible about to happen. Frightened was the way he had felt a year ago when an unidentified aircraft had overflown the community twice. He had seen it both times. Squinting toward the sky, he had seen the sleek jet, almost a blur at its high speed, go past, and a second later heard the blast of sound that followed. Then one more time, a moment later, from the opposite direction, the same plane. Now let's stop. Write down on your worksheet the name of the main character. So take a moment to do that. Right now we know of one main character. Go ahead and write that down for me. At first, he had only been fascinated. He had never seen aircraft so close, for it was against the rules of pilots to fly over the community. Occasionally, when supplies were delivered by cargo planes to the landing field across the river, the children rode their bicycles to the riverbank and watched, intrigued. The unloading and then the takeoff direct to the west, always away from the community. But the aircraft a year ago had been different. It was not a squat, fat-bellied cargo plane, but a needle-nosed single-pilot jet. Jonas, looking around anxiously, had seen others, adults as well as children, stop what they were doing and wait, confused, for an explanation of the frightening event. So on your worksheet, go ahead and write down the frightening event that they are discussing here, and also take a moment to write down what you think the aircraft might be. Does anyone have any questions?
Every time the book gets good, we have to stop and take notes. I wish reading wasn't so much hard work. I kind of relate to the main character though, but every time it starts getting good, we have to stop, and I forget what we're doing. Can't wait to go home and watch TV. At least no one asks me questions about what my shows are.
Today, we're going to read To Kill a Mockingbird. We will read it out loud together, and we're going to pause throughout so we can take notes. So grab your books, grab your sticky notes, and we will begin. Tomorrow we will be having a multiple choice quiz on today's reading selection. So this note-taking sheet, an additional study guide that I will pass out right now. Both of these are going to help you identify important points in the story as you read. And then later this hour, we're going to take a look at some additional vocabulary that you may see on the upcoming PSAT. So we're going to incorporate that into your reading process today. We don't have much time, so let's get started. So I'm going to pass these out. Okay, now let's begin. Jem was 12. He was difficult to live with, inconsistent, moody. His appetite was appalling, and he took me so many times to stop pestering him, I consulted Atticus. Reckon he's got a tapeworm? Atticus said no, Jem was growing. I must be patient with him and disturb him as little as possible. So let's pause for a moment. And thinking about what's going on with Jem here, our main character is Scout, and she's talking about her brother Jem. She seems a little frustrated with him. So take a moment on your study guide sheet to write down what you think is going on with Jem and why Scout feels this way towards him. Okay. This change in Jem had come about in a matter of weeks. Mrs. DeBose was not cold in her grave. Jem had seemed grateful enough for my company when he went to read to her. Overnight, it seemed Jem had acquired an alien set of values and was trying to impose them on me. Several times he went as far to tell me what to do. After one altercation when Jem hollered, "It's time you started being a girl and actin' right," I burst into tears and fled to Calpurnia. "Don't you fret too much over Mr. Jem," she began. "Mr. Jem?" "Yeah, he's just about Mr. Jem now." "He ain't that old," I said. "All he needs is somebody to beat him up, and I ain't big enough." Okay, so let's reflect for a moment on Calpurnia. So on your study guide, there's a couple questions about...
I hate this book. I don't think I've ever read a book I liked in school. And I don't understand what I'm learning other than how to waste so much paper with these worksheets that we do all the time. And more SAT prep? I've never been good at multiple choice tests, and more review isn't going to help. I'm not even going to college anyway. I can't get through a whole book. Why would I spend money to read?
Good morning, class. Today for reading, we're going to take a look at the story that's called The Great Kapok Tree, and it's a tale of the Amazon rainforest. And as I'm reading this book to you today, what I would like you to do is I would like you to listen for the animals that are in this story and the reasons why they like this kapok tree. So this is The Great Kapok Tree by Lynn Cherry. Two men walked into the rainforest. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now all was quiet as the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great kapok tree. Then he left. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, the heat and hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. A boa constrictor lived in the kapok tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down.
I loved the book, The Great Kapok Tree, and I love this assignment. I put down that the reason that the bee didn't want the hive or the tree cut down is because the hive lives in the tree. Look at this beautiful hive. Can you imagine what our world would be like if we didn't have bees?
No, I couldn't. I really loved the book too. And I put that the porcupines didn't want the rainforest cut down because people and animals need oxygen, and the trees provide oxygen.
That's true. I love this assignment. This is so much fun.
This is fun.
So in history, the last few weeks, we've been working and learning about World War II. Last week, you guys had the opportunity to take a look at The Diary of Anne Frank and The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And you were able to write down the book that was most interesting to you. That book I now have on your desk. This is going to be the book that you're assigned to, and you'll be working with other kids reading the same book for your own book club. And what I want you guys to do today, you'll have the opportunity to start reading the first 3 chapters of this book. And throughout the reading of your book selection, I want you to think about these 2 questions. How does the character feel about what's happening to them? And does the character try to fight back in some way? Tomorrow you'll meet in your book club for the first time to talk about what's happening so far and to discuss how you guys want to answer these 2 questions.
This book has been really interesting to read. And I'm noticing that Anne is having a lot of feelings, and you can tell that she's against the war and that she's feeling sad and guilty and worried about her friends in the concentration camp. She's also worried that her own life might be discovered.
Yeah, I noticed that she did have a lot of feelings. I noticed that she felt like she was betraying her own race. She was sleeping in a warm bed, and she was safe when her friends were in the concentration camps.
I know. I've had feelings like that myself before. I was making a lot of connections when I was reading it.
Me too. I can understand her feeling of conflict.
Yes, I can. Obviously, I've never had anything as serious to be conflicted about as Anne has, but I was definitely able to make some connections.
Me too.
Today we're going to be starting the book To Kill a Mockingbird. This is a book that has many themes to it. Some of the themes include racism, justice and judgment, morality and ethics, fear, compassion, and forgiveness. As you read this book, I want you to pick out a theme that you're passionate about, that you can relate to, or maybe that you find interesting. You can choose one of these themes or something else that you find in this book. And as you pick that theme out, I want you to think about how does that relate to what's going on in our world today. You're going to be given time in class to read this book and to research the current events in our world. And you're going to be working on either making a PowerPoint, a poster, or write a paper about how this book and theme relates to our world today.
I noticed when I was reading To Kill a Mockingbird that Jem and Scout showed compassion to Dill when they discovered that he ran away from home.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And it makes me think of a quote Atticus said, "You never really know a person until you've walked around in his shoes."
That's true. I think that these would be good quotes that we could add to the themes on our board for compassion and forgiveness. Oh, but before we do that, Melanie, I'd like to show you this news clip I found that would be a great text-to-world connection. I was watching the news this morning on Channel 2 in Miami. There is a group of students that are working towards eliminating bullying from their school.
That district is very proud of it. So are we. Students there are hoping to end bullying once and for all. And they're doing it by using some paper and good deeds. 2 News reporter Jake Rao is live with a look at the group that is bringing students closer together.
Well, Katie, the chain gang is a very important group for any football program. But here at Miami East, there's actually another group that involves a chain that is very, very important. In fact, it's with Miami East Junior High School. They create these chains that go all along the school, and each one of them has a name and also something very special with them. Each link represents an act of compassion shown by students. As soon as you walk into Miami East Junior High, you're going to notice the words "walk together." It's a phrase they stand behind, making sure all students feel included. You don't have to go very far into the school to see the chain link work.
Oh, I finally got done with high school. Now I just gotta go to my job. Got the sweet hookup at McDonald's. Hopefully I'll make manager one day.
Guidance counselor would like to see you.
Come on in.
Hi, Patty. I'm so glad to see you today. I just got a phone call from the dean at the University of Michigan.
Yes.
And he had great news. He said that you have received early admission.
Oh my goodness! I'm so excited! Oh my
You worked so hard for that.